When Matthew wrote his gospel, it's very likely that originally he wrote his gospel in Hebrew or Aramaic. Very possible, very likely. Hence, all the apostolic fathers and the apostolic testimonies of those early church fathers is true. There was a Hebrew text that was originally written for Hebrews and Jews around the world. But bear in mind this, not every Jew understood Hebrew or Aramaic. Now, certainly in Palestine, the majority would have. But when you get outside of Palestine, when you get into some of the other areas, such as what we see represented in Jerusalem in Acts chapter 2, we can see there that these people had different languages of their own, right? And so it's very likely that many of them did not read Aramaic or perhaps even Hebrew, though it's more likely they would have read Hebrew than Aramaic. So rather than suggesting that Matthew wrote his gospel in Hebrew and then translated it, or somebody else translated it into Greek, it's actually really very likely that Matthew wrote in Hebrew or Aramaic, so he wrote one in that, but then he also wrote an edition in Greek, which gives us an original Greek text, which accounts for all the variations that we see, the Hebrew and the Aramaic being left in the text and then explanations being given. It also explains the good Greek. This is a native Greek speaker, someone who's very capable with the language and doesn't therefore feel obliged to just translate his original work into Greek. He can just write it down fresh again, or fresh in the beginning, whichever it might be, and publish that version. And this also helps us to understand why a Hebrew version may not have actually survived, why we don't have a copy today. Because the number of people who read and write Hebrew or Aramaic in the ancient world would have been far more constrained and far more restricted than the number of people who read and wrote Greek. And so it's likely that the Greek edition got copied far more regularly and distributed far more broadly and therefore preserved, where the Hebrew edition or the Aramaic edition or whatever it was did not.